If my stepsister is right, then there's something living in this house. And tonight, I'm going to stay awake and find out for myself. I know how that sounds. If someone else told me this story, I'd probably think they were exaggerating or just letting their imagination run wild. But after the last few weeks in this house, I'm honestly not so sure anymore. It started when my stepsister moved in with us. My mom had recently remarried, and my stepsister, Emily, came to live in our house about 3 months ago. At first, everything seemed completely normal. She was quiet but friendly, and she spent most of her time either in her room or hanging out with us in the living room watching movies. But about 2 weeks after she moved in, things started getting strange. At first, it was little things. Emily would mention hearing footsteps late at night when everyone else was asleep. She said it sounded like someone slowly walking through the hallway outside her room. We all assumed it was just the house making noise. Our house is pretty old. The floors creak when the temperature changes, and sometimes the air vents make weird groaning sounds in the middle of the night. I'd lived here for years, so none of that really bothered me. But Emily was convinced something else was going on. One morning during breakfast, she told us she heard someone whispering outside her door around 3 in the morning. Not loud whispering, just a quiet voice that sounded like someone talking softly to themselves. She said when she opened the door, the hallway was completely empty. My mom told her it was probably just a dream. Emily didn't argue about it, but she looked genuinely unsettled. A few days later, something else happened. I was downstairs, playing a game on my phone, when Emily suddenly came running into the living room. She looked pale, like she'd just seen something she couldn't explain. She told us she'd been walking down the hallway when she saw a dark shape move past the bathroom door. She thought someone was in the hallway, but when she checked, there was no one there. I remember my stepdad laughing a little and saying she was probably just seeing shadows. But Emily didn't laugh. She just kept staring down the hallway, like she expected something to appear again. That was the first time I realized she wasn't joking about any of this. She was actually scared. A week later, things got even weirder. It was late at night, probably around 2 in the morning. I was still awake in my room, watching videos on my laptop when I heard a loud bang somewhere in the house. At first, I thought someone had dropped something in the kitchen. Then I heard Emily shout from down the hallway. Not a scream exactly, but the kind of shout someone makes when they're startled. I opened my door and stepped into the hallway. Emily's bedroom door was wide open. She was standing there staring at the wall across from her room. What happened? I asked. She pointed toward the hallway bookshelf. One of the books had fallen onto the floor, but not just fallen. It was lying almost in the middle of the hallway, like it had been thrown. Emily said she had been sitting on her bed when she saw the book slide halfway out of the shelf, and then suddenly drop onto the floor by itself. There wasn't any window open. No one else was awake. We both just stood there staring at the book for a moment before I picked it up and put it back on the shelf. I told her it probably just slipped. But the truth is, books don't usually launch themselves 2 feet away from a shelf. Still, I didn't want to feed into her fear. Over the next few days, Emily started talking about something else. She said she thought there was something in the house. Not a ghost, not exactly. Something darker. She actually used the word devil. At first I thought she was joking, but she looked completely serious. She said every night around the same time, a strange feeling would come over the house, like the air got heavier, like something was watching. I tried to tell her she was just getting used to a new place. Moving into a different house can mess with your head for a while. But deep down, I started noticing things too. Little things. The kind of things you normally ignore. For example, our hallway light started flickering occasionally at night. Not constantly, just once or twice when you walked past it. And sometimes when I went to the kitchen late at night, I felt like someone else was standing in the dark hallway behind me. I never actually saw anyone there, but the feeling was strong enough that I'd turn around, just to check. Of course, the hallway was always empty. Then something happened that made everyone in the house uncomfortable. It was a Saturday night. We were all sitting in the living room watching TV. Emily was sitting on the floor, near the coffee table, while the rest of us were on the couch. The room was quiet except for the TV. Suddenly there was a loud thud behind us. We all turned around at the same time. One of the books from the living room shelf had fallen onto the floor, but the strange part was how it fell. The shelf was against the wall. The book didn't just slide down. It landed nearly 3 feet away from the shelf. For a few seconds, nobody said anything. Then my stepdad stood up and checked the shelf. Everything else looked normal. No loose boards, no tilted stacks. Nothing that could explain how the book had moved like that. Emily slowly stood up and whispered, "See." No one laughed that time. Later that night, I started thinking about everything she had said. I still didn't believe there was some kind of devil in the house, but something definitely felt off. That's when I decided I was going to stay awake one night and see if anything actually happened. Which brings us to tonight. Right now, it's a little after midnight. Everyone else in the house is asleep. Emily warned me not to do this. She said the strange things usually happen around 3 in the morning. She called it the worst time. I'm sitting in the living room with the lights turned off except for a small lamp near the couch. The house is completely quiet. Every now and then I hear the wooden floor creak somewhere upstairs. Probably just the house settling. At least that's what I keep telling myself. I checked the hallway a few minutes ago. All the doors are closed. Everything looks normal. But there's definitely a weird feeling in the air tonight. It's hard to describe. Like the house feels heavier somehow. Like the silence is thicker than usual. About 10 minutes ago I heard something upstairs. It sounded like a slow step. Just one. Then nothing. I waited for a second step, but it never came. Maybe someone rolled over in their bed. Or maybe it was just the house again. I'm trying not to jump to conclusions. Still, I can't shake the feeling that someone else is awake. A few minutes ago, I checked the time again. 2:47 a.m., which means it's getting close to 3. The house is so quiet right now that I can hear the ticking of the clock on the wall. Tick, tick, tick. Then suddenly, I heard something in the hallway. A soft sound, like someone slowly dragging their fingers along the wall. I froze on the couch and held my breath. The sound lasted only a few seconds. Then it stopped. I stood up and walked slowly toward the hallway. Every step felt louder than it should. When I reached the corner, I looked down the hallway. All the bedroom doors were still closed, but the hallway light was flickering again. Just once. Then it stayed on. I stood there for a moment listening. That's when I heard it. A whisper, very faint. It sounded like it was coming from somewhere near Emily's room. I couldn't understand what the voice was saying. It was too quiet, but it definitely sounded like someone speaking softly. I walked a little closer, and that's when Emily's bedroom door slowly creaked open. Not quickly. Not like someone pulled it. It just slowly moved open by itself. The whispering stopped. The hallway went completely silent again. I stood there staring at the door, waiting for someone to step out, but nothing happened. After a few seconds, I pushed the door open a little wider and looked inside. Emily was asleep in her bed, completely still. The room was dark and quiet. She hadn't moved, which means whatever I heard in the hallway wasn't her. I stepped back into the hallway, and that's when I noticed something that made my stomach drop. At the far end of the hallway, near the bathroom, there was a shadow on the wall, but nothing was standing there. The shadow looked like a tall shape, almost like the outline of a person, but there was no one there to cast it. I blinked, and the shadow slowly slid along the wall, before disappearing into the darkness near the stairs. I didn't chase it. I didn't investigate. I walked straight back into the living room and turned every light in the house on. I stayed awake until sunrise, and I'm still not sure what I saw. Maybe it was just my imagination. Maybe it was a trick of the light. But one thing is certain. Emily wasn't imagining everything. Something strange is definitely happening in this house. And after what I saw tonight, I'm not so sure I want to find out what it is. If any of you have ever experienced something like this before, let me know in the comments. Because right now, I'm starting to think my stepsister might not be as crazy as I thought. And if something really is living in this house, I have a feeling it knows we're talking about it.